Okay, great.
Hi, Jillian. How are you doing?
Jen. I'm okay. I feel really stressed, but I'm glad that we have a big break next week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be nice.
Yeah.
What do you find that you're stressed about?
Just the entire semester, just my entire, I think, past 6 months. What is we, November? So 6 months ago was like June, no, May. It was 5. So in the past 6 months, I've just been like, I feel like I've just been juggling so many things and hoping that none of it falls, and trying to figure out like if it does fall, like if I do drop a ball, like is it all on me? Just trying to navigate all that stuff, and I feel like we're getting towards the end now, the end of classes, the end of kind of some big things at work, and I can finally be like, oh, man, I was carrying so much, So I'm just like, do you have time? Like, can I just like go into it?
I have all the time in the world.
Okay, great. I'll probably take about like 15 minutes or something.
Okay.
So this summer I worked with our orientation program, and it was great. It was really fast paced. Lots of people, lots of little fires everywhere. Not real fires, like fake fires. And when I was reflecting over the summer, I just felt like I just wasn't set up for success in ways that I think the team or my supervisors could have set me up for success. And so I went through a point in the summer I was just like really mad, and I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever done. Like, I don't want to work here anymore. I feel alone. I feel like isolated, and like I don't fit, and I'm not welcome. And I felt all those things, and I just wanted to like shut down. And then it got to the point where I was just like, all right, well, this is how it's going to be. Like, what can I do to make sure that the rest of the summer I get what I need? So if I can tell you a little story, I had an interaction with one of my supervisors. That was the first thing that was weird, was that I had one supervisor who hired me, but then for the summer, I had another supervisor that was like, it wasn't clearly articulated that this person was my supervisor, but they were. And so I didn't know who to go to for my questions, and that was the first kind of like confusing, like who is my person? And I like having a person, like wherever I go. And so I was having this issue with one of the orientation leaders, and it happened to be around like the controversial topic of race and ethnicity and inclusion and diversity. And as the only like person of color on staff, like the day-to-day staff, I was like, okay, like I want to address this with you. I want to talk to you. Like, let's talk about it with the orientation leader. And I talked to my supervisor and I said, hey, I'm going to meet with so-and-so this afternoon to talk about what they posted. Did you see the post? Like, I don't agree with it. I think it's insensitive. So I'm going to address it because it bothered me. And the response I got was almost like what are you going to say? Like, we don't know. You need to, like, let's talk about what you're going to say first before you talk to the student. And it really surprised me, and it really frustrated me because it felt like a lot of things. One, it felt like my supervisor didn't trust me, that they didn't think that I was going to say something wrong and make them look bad. It made me feel like, they like wanted to just keep me on a tight leash. Like they hired me for this position to help supervise the orientation leaders, and I think I came with a lot of different strengths and skill sets and experiences, and so I was like following those, but it kind of felt like no, just leave that to the big people, like leave it to the adults. And so I was really frustrated, and the supervisor never followed up with me about talking about it. So I went ahead and talked to the orientation leader. And it was a very informal, educational conversation. It wasn't punitive. I wasn't upset with the person. And it felt really good. Like, it felt like a successful conversation. My supervisor never followed up with me if I talked to them, how the conversation went. So in their understanding, even up till now, I never had the conversation. And that person, the supervisor, said that they also wanted to talk to the orientation leader because they were going to have a one-on-one, and they never talked about it. And so So I think that happened like towards the beginning, middle of the summer, and that just kind of like dictated the rest of my summer. Like, okay, so you're not going to give me clear expectations, but then when I try to do something and initiate something, you like try to micromanage me. So that was really frustrating, but I think I learned a lot about how I don't want to be supervised, or maybe how I do want to be supervised. So there was a lot of dynamics to that too, because the supervisor in this scenario was like younger than me, and this was like the first or the second like full year as a professional for them, and so I don't want to be prideful and say that she was intimidated, but I can understand if, especially around the topic of race and diversity, if there, did I say she? Dang it, I was trying not to give the thing away, but I could understand if she was hesitant because she wanted to make sure that she had, a good pulse on it, which I think at this point I get, and we've had many conversations about different things, and, I think that she's a great person. But that was one of the things this summer that I'm like, what just happened? Like, why do I feel like a child in this scenario? And that kind of dictated my whole summer. So coming from the summer and kind of like reflecting on that, it gave me a bad taste in my mouth for like orientation, which is sad because I thought that was something that I'm like, I maybe would like this. And so I think maybe not orientation at a school this size, maybe, or I don't know, maybe not involved in the day-to-day tasks. I don't know. So it was really frustrating. And then transitioning to the fall, I started in the same office. So I got a new assistantship in the same office with the same people. And before the summer, I was really excited about it. I was like, okay, good. Like, I get to be with everyone. But then starting the fall, I was kind of like, dang it, I'm with these people again. Like, I feel like I don't really fit. And I feel like, I'm just rambling. Is that okay?
No.
Feel free to interject at any time.
I appreciate you sharing all this with me.
Thanks. Do you have any thoughts, I guess? First, before I go on, because I can just like talk forever. Like, I don't know. What do you think about the summer?
I just feel bad that you had to kind of go through that experience, especially looking as forward to orientation and like the newness of it that you did.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I really just wanted someone to be like, I understand. Like, it's okay. So it means a lot that you said that.
What type of, so you mentioned a little bit of like not appreciating the micromanagement and not feeling trusted was a really big thing for you. Do you feel like there maybe like, do you feel like it wasn't adequate training on their part at all? Or like, what do you think the reasoning behind that disconnect would be?
I think it was a lot of things. I think there was a lot of missed opportunities for establishing good relationship and good expectations and good training. Mm-hmm. For instance, I was under the impression that because I was hired in January, I would be involved in like some of the training classes with the orientation leaders, and I'd attend meetings with the orientation coordinators and like things like that, and just like kept up to date with things. But nothing really happened until like a week before our first session. And so I came in already frustrated. Like, what am I getting myself into? Like, I don't know any of these 43 people that I'm supposed to be like over. So I think it was like a lack of training and a lack of communication. Because I think if there was some type of training and times for us to meet before the spring, I think I could have asked questions and they could have clarified, like, what's my role?
Right.
Like, if someone comes to me with something, am I supposed to go to you? Am I supposed to go to you? Am I supposed to handle it myself? And so, I think that's where a lot of the frustration came in the moment, it almost felt like I didn't have any authority because they would ask me a question. I would just say, I don't know. I have to ask. Mm-hmm. And I almost felt like one of the orientation leaders, like, yeah, man, I don't know the answer. Let me go ask.
Like a lack of clarity.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Like a total lack of clarity and a lack of clarity that there was no clarity. Like in my mind, if I were one of them, and obviously, it's easy to see this on the outside, but if I were one of them, like I didn't have a one-on-one with either of my supervisors the entire summer. And the amount of time that both of them combined have just been working in student affairs, I don't know. I feel like if I were them, I would just been like, oh man, I need to touch base with Jillian outside of like, hey,
Work
how's it
duties.
going? Yeah. But even work duties, like even in like the first week, the first session, I had to figure out like, okay, when I go here, what do I do? Nobody knew. Or they had an idea, but they had never done it themselves, so they didn't know like the intricacies of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a lack of clarity and then a lack of understanding that was needed. And that was very frustrating. Another thing that was very, very frustrating was that there were two of us that were hired as grads, and I was the daytime one, and then the other one was a nighttime one. And so our duties overlapped at times, and we worked well together, and it was good. But while we were there, the person who served in my role last summer also was working at the same time and was at, orientation and was there all day, every day. And it was this weird, I felt this. It was this weird, tension of, okay, she was in my spot last year, but there was no offer of, help or, hey, how are you doing? Do you want me to, come shadow or, do you have any questions?
The proximity, the closeness of the relationship wasn't there.
It wasn't there. And on top of that, it felt like because she was there, there was just a lot of, everybody already knew each other but me.
Okay.
And so,
like the new person.
Yeah. Instead of having at least more space to be like, hey, I'm new at this, can we talk about it? It was like any new time we had, she was there. And I think it was on my part, I felt really intimidated. I just felt like, okay, I don't want to look stupid, so I'm not going to ask questions. So I think on my part, I could have done a better job of creating space and encouraging myself to ask. But I think I just felt so disappointed that they didn't see that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, almost whose job is it to create the space?
It? Oh,
right. Yeah.
Yeah. I know, really. And there was a main thing on our day 2 of our sessions. There was this thing that we would do with our families, and we would sell this membership. And this was the second summer that we were doing it. The first summer was when the other girl was in the job.
Okay.
And so it was weird because the whole time there was no learning for me because she would just kind of take it all over and do everything. Okay. Which it was a big task and it needed a lot of hands on deck, but I didn't get to learn the logistics of trying to plan what this was or
the process.
Yeah, or troubleshooting because every time a problem came up, oh, this would be last year.
Solved.
Yeah, I'm like, okay.
Where's the learning moment?
Where's the learning moment? You're so good. You specifically. Yeah, it just felt, and it didn't feel like anybody noticed that except me and the other grad that was working with me.
So you wish they had kind of challenged you more to solve those problems and
on my own.
And and given you the space to try out your dialogue with the awkward or controversial conversations,
right?
And truly trust you to handle it.
Exactly. Gotcha. Or even say hey, let's say the grad last year, her name was Sally. Hey, Sally, this is Jillian's first time. How about this week we just let her do it herself? And maybe you can just give her some feedback after, or things like that would make me feel a little more I think what it came down to was I didn't feel empowered. I didn't feel empowered to hey, we trust you, go do whatever you think you need to do, or hey, we're looking out for you, you know what I mean? There wasn't any empowerment, which I didn't realize until the end of the summer. That's what I like. That's what I like in terms of a supervisor relationship, but also just a team. Yeah, Jillian, we hired you for a reason. You don't just go do whatever you think you need to do. So
well, I find that interesting just because being in the field that we're in, that's kind of the job of, our job is to challenge our, trainees, to kind of just, make that jump even when they think that they can't. And that's what I've found. A lot of times we'll, sometimes make you feel much better when you feel empowered, like you're saying. It sounds like that's the disconnect here, is that you're not feeling challenged, or like they don't trust you, or they're not giving you enough chance to shine.
Yeah.
So how can
That's
you
exactly
can you thrive at your job when you're not being given the chance to? So
hit the nail on the head. You should do this for a living, probably. Yeah. So and there wasn't a chance for an exit interview. There wasn't a chance for like any feedback.
Wow.
And I think like I'm at a point now where I feel secure enough to say, hey, it's taking me a while to process, but I'd love to kind of meet and just talk about my experience.
Right.
Because I think there are things, because I'm still in the office, I think there are things that I could do to kind of just help shape that. Because I think what happens is there's so many components to our orientation sessions that, like, I think on the flip side, I'm like, well, of course they didn't have time, for this, because there were like all of these things happening on the outside. So I'm trying to figure out like what I want to do next. Like, do I want to have a conversation? Do I want to just take the initiative and say, hey, I made this for the next grad. Like, if you want to pass it along, cool. If not, like, just know that it's there. Do I want to not say anything and just be like, all right, well, they'll learn. So I think I'm in a spot now where I'm kind of like, I'm not mad. I still found myself like getting a little passionate about it. I think especially when it came to the diversity and inclusion thing, because I think that was a huge theme over the summer with the orientation leaders. So I'm not mad anymore. I think I'm just ready to act on everything that I was feeling.
Mm-hmm. More of a call to action.
Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out the best thing to do. I don't know. Do you have any advice? Like, what would you do? Should I talk to someone?
So I think all of your thoughts and ideas for moving forward are super valid. Like, I think having options is great and super helpful, because at the end of the day, like, I still think that it would be helpful for you probably to disclose some of the feedback, just because I think both parties can benefit. And it sounds like there's a lot of unresolved triggering things that are still like inside of you that I want you to get out before you leave that office, because otherwise you're going to end it like you did orientation, which is kind of like in a salty manner. And, that's not what we want for your grad school experience. So I would just say to think about it and kind of provide yourself with a couple options and just sit on them and see what feels right. And you said maybe challenge yourself to create those spaces. Maybe that's something that you do, and just challenge yourself. And yes, I know it's frustrating. You mentioned the word frustration, that you shouldn't have to do that, and that they should kind of seek that out and notice, like, hey, we're not giving Jillian a chance to speak up or, provide her thoughts. But if that's what's needed at this time, it could be something to consider. I'm not sure, what else I can do for you if there are other things.
I mean, this was honestly really great, because even when I started this conversation, I thought I was like, oh yeah, this happened in the summer, like, I'm over it. But in talking to you, it just feels like, okay, like, there are things in me that I are unresolved. Mm-hmm. And I think the only way it could be resolved is not to confront. I don't want to use the word confront them, but just to like you said, like, disclose the feedback. Like, it's just feedback. Like, I would want somebody to do that to me too and give me feedback. So yeah, I mean, this has been great. I think I would love it if I could maybe send you like the email that I'll send, or just ask you ideas. Sure. Or like, hey Jen, this is what I'm gonna do. Hey Jen, I hate them, or something, whatever.
I would love to be on your side through all of this. Just let me know how it goes.
I will.
And I want this to be, a learning moment for you, and hopefully we can just make it work.
Thanks, Jen.
No problem.
Yay! Yeah!